To cope, all of us have been given a random set of tools and instructions by parents, family, friends, teachers, and others. Some of this has been helpful, some not. We'll discuss some tools that might work to help you understand how our thoughts are made. We can try to find a guide for changing how we respond to our moods and our life. You may believe painful feelings are caused by forgotten childhood experiences. Maybe you assume the only way to relieve these feelings is through long, difficult analysis to root out unconscious memories and associations. There is some connection between your distant past and painful feelings in the present. But there is much more immediate and accessible source of emotions, your current train of thought. Most emotions are immediately preceded by some kind of interpreting thoughts. For example, say a friend doesn't call when they said they would. If you think, he doesn't like me after all, you might feel sadness or shame. If you think, they must have been in an accident, you might feel fear and anxiety. If you think, oh, he lied to me, he's blowing me off, you might feel angry. Different thoughts about the same event spark very different emotions. But there is something you may have noticed from this example, that something is expressed by the second simple insight at the heart of understanding. You can change your feelings by changing your thoughts. It is as simple as it is. In any situation where thoughts are triggering emotional distress, these methods can help. This is especially true for automatic or habitual thoughts. Over the past 60 years, many researchers have created and tested tools based on methods to treat these automation of thoughts. They are practical, easy to learn, and can give relief, especially from anxiety and depression. Anxiety becomes a problem when you worry more days than not for at least 6 months. It is difficult to control, and you likely experience these symptoms: restlessness, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, irritability, muscle tension, sleep disturbances. Depression, on the other hand, is when your mood is sad and nothing seems interesting or pleasurable. It can affect you through your appetite, causing you to lose or gain weight, sleeping a lot more or less than usual, feeling restless and yet tired at the same time, struggling to concentrate or make decisions, especially the decisions to get up and do something, feeling worthless, a sense of hopelessness about life. If depression has you thinking seriously about self-harm, these tools might help. These tools might also help to deal with other problems like problematic anger, perfectionism, low self-esteem, shame, guilt, and other things. We can discuss and learn the core tools and practices that might start giving you relief from emotional suffering. Let's discuss the automation of thoughts. As you now know, thoughts cause feelings. Many emotions are preceded and caused by a thought. However abbreviated, fleeting, or unnoticed that thought may be. This is often represented as the ABC model of emotions, where A stands for activating events, B stands for belief or thought, and C stands for consequences. Here's an example. For example, A, event, you get into your car and turn the key and nothing happens. B, the thought. You interpret the events by saying to yourself, oh no, my battery is dead, this is awful, I'm stuck, I'll be late. C, feelings. You experience an emotion appropriate to your thoughts. In this case, you feel depressed and anxious about being late. But when you change the thought, you change the feelings. If your next thought was, my teenager must have left the car's light on all night, you might have felt anger. But if you had thought, I will have an extra cup of coffee, relax, and wait for a jump from the tow truck, you would have felt mild annoyance at the most. Automatic thoughts like these pop into your mind in response to a trigger and without your intent. We will learn how to recognize and uncover these automatic thoughts, creating problems in this cycle. Then you will learn to hear your own automatic thoughts so you can begin to record them in a thought journal. This is an extremely useful approach for exploring, confronting, and changing patterns of negative thinking. Let's talk about feedback loops. The event, thought, feeling sequence is the basic building block of emotional life. But the building blocks can become very jumbled up and confusing. In real life, people typically do not experience a simple series of ABC reactions, each with its discrete activating event, thought, and resultant feeling. More often, a series of ABC reactions join to form a feedback loop in which the ending feeling from one sequence becomes the starting event of another sequence. In the case of painful feelings, a negative feedback loop can occur. This happens when an uncomfortable feeling itself becomes an activating event. The subject of further thoughts which produce more painful feelings, which becomes a larger event, inspiring more negative thoughts, and so on. Feelings have physiological components. When you experience emotions such as fear, anger, or joy, your heart speeds up, you breathe faster and less deeply, you sweat more, and blood vessels in different parts of your body contract or dilate. Conversely, quiet emotions, as they are called, such as depression, sadness, or grief, involve a slowing down of some of your physiological systems. Either way, both the emotions and the accompanying bodily sensations trigger an evaluation process in which you start trying to interpret and label what you feel. Here is an example of a feedback loop. If your car wouldn't start late at night when you are in a dangerous part of town, the negative feedback loop might go like this. A is an event, car doesn't start. B is a thought, oh no, this is awful. I'll be late and this is a dangerous street. C are the feelings, heart beating fast, feeling hot and sweaty, irritation, anxiety. B again, the loop, negative feedback loop. B again, thought, I'm scared. I could get mugged. This is really bad. C in the feedback loop again, feelings, stomach clenching, hard to breathe, dizzy, fear. Thought, feedback loop again. I'm freaking out. I will lose control. Can't move. Can't get safe. C, feeling again in the third feedback loop, strong adrenaline rush and panic. As you see, the loop can continue until you work yourself into a rage, anxiety attack, or deep depression. You're constantly describing the word to yourself, giving each event or experience some label. You automatically make interpretations of everything you see, hear, touch, and feel. You judge events as good or bad, pleasurable or painful, safe or dangerous. This process colors all your experiences, labeling them with private meanings. These labels and judgments are fashioned from the unending dialogue you have with yourself, a waterfall of thoughts cascading down the back of your mind. These thoughts are constant and rarely noticed, but they are powerful enough to create your most intense emotions. Automatic thoughts usually have the following characteristics, which we will discuss in detail. They often appear in shorthand, they are believed, seem spontaneous, are should, ought, or must, tend to awfulize situation, are relatively idiosyncratic, are persistent and self-perpetuating. They differ from the person's public statements, they repeat certain themes, and they are learned. Let's talk about the first thing. Why do they appear in shorthand? Automatic thoughts often appear in shorthand, composed of just a few essential words, phrased in telegraphic style: lonely, getting sick, cannot stand it, cancer, no good. That is one example. One word or a short phrase functions as a label for a group of painful memories, fears, or self reproaches. An automatic thought need not be expressed in words at all. It can be a brief visual image, an imagined sound or smell, or a physical sensation. For example, someone who was afraid of heights had a half-second image of the floor tilting and felt himself sliding down towards a window. This momentarily fantasy triggered acute anxiety whenever he ascended above the third floor. Sometimes, an automatic thought is a brief reconstruction of an event in the past. For instance, a depressed person kept seeing the stairway in a shopping mall where her child or a friend or a family member got injured. This image of the stairway was enough to unleash all the feelings associated with that loss. Occasionally, an automatic thought can take the form of self-fulfilling knowledge without words, images, or sense impressions. For example, a chef who was plagued with self-doubt just knew that it was useless to try to get promoted to the head chef position. Automatic thoughts are believed. Automatic thoughts typically seem very believable, no matter how illogical they appear upon analysis. For example, a man who reacted with rage to the death of his best friend actually believed for a time that his friend deliberately died to punish him. Automatic thoughts have the same believable quality as direct sense impressions. You attach the same truth value to automatic thoughts as you do to sights and sounds in the real world. If you see people getting into Porsche and have the thought they're rich, they don't care about anyone but themselves, the judgment is as real to you as the color of the car. Automatic thoughts are spontaneous. You believe automatic thoughts because they are automatic. They seem to arise spontaneously out of ongoing events. They just pop into your head, and you hardly notice them, let alone subject them to logical analysis. Automatic thoughts are usually should, ought, or must associated. A woman whose husband had recently died thought, "You ought to go it alone. You shouldn't burden your friends." Each time the thought popped into her mind, she felt a wave of hopelessness. People torture themselves with shoulds, such as, "I should be happy. I should be more energetic, creative, responsible, loving, generous." Each ironclad should precipitates a sense of guilt or a loss of self-esteem. Shoulds are hard to eradicate since their origin and function is actually adaptive. They are simple rules to live by that have worked in the past. They are templates for survival that you can access quickly in times of stress. The problem is that they become so automatic that you don't have time to analyze them, and they become so rigid that you cannot modify them to fit to your changing situations. So these automatic thoughts also tend to create what is called awfulness. Automatic thoughts predict catastrophes, see danger in everything, and always anticipate the worst. A stomach ache is a symptom of cancer, for example, or a look of distraction on a friend's face is the first sign of that they are going to leave you. These catastrophic thoughts are the major source of anxiety. Like shoulds, they are also hard to eradicate because of their adaptive function. They help you predict the future and prepare for the worst case scenarios. Automatic thoughts are idiosyncratic. Here is an example of how different automatic thoughts can arise for different people in response to the same event. In a crowded theater, a woman suddenly stood up, slapped the face of a man next to her, and hurried to the aisle and out the exit. One woman who witnessed this event was frightened because she thought, "Oh, she's really going to get it when they get home," because she assumed that she was the wife and the man was the husband. She imagined the details of a brutal beating at home and recalled times when she would have been physically abused. A teenager felt angry because he thought, "That poor guy, probably he said nothing and she humiliated him. She's a bad woman." A middle-aged man, seeing his ex-wife's face set in angry lines, told himself, "Now he's lost her, and he will never get her back," and felt depressed. A social worker felt a sense of righteous pleasure as she thought, "Serves him right. I wish some of the timid women I know had seen that and done the same." Each response was based on a unique way of viewing the stimulus event and resulted in a different, strong emotion. Automatic thoughts are persistent and self-perpetuating. Automatic thoughts are hard to turn off or change because they are reflexive and plausible. They weave unnoticed through the fabric of your internal dialogue and seem to come and go with a will of their own. One automatic thought tends to act as a cue for another, and then another, and then another. You may have experienced this chaining effect as one depressing thought triggers a long chain of associated depressing thoughts. Automatic thoughts differ from public statements. Most people talk to others very differently from the way they talk to themselves. To others, they usually describe events in their lives as logical sequences of cause and effect, but to themselves, they may describe the same event with self-depreciating poison of dire predictions. One executive calmly explained aloud, "Since I got laid off, I have been a little depressed." This matter-of-fact statement differed sharply from the actual thoughts that unemployment triggered in her. "I'm a failure. I'll never work again. My family will starve. I can't make it in this world." So these thoughts left her with an image of spiraling down into a bottomless black pit. The automatic thoughts also repeat certain themes. Chronic anger, anxiety, or depression results from a focus of one particular group of traumatic thoughts to the exclusion of all contrary thoughts. The theme of anxious people is danger. You may be preoccupied with the anticipation of dangerous situations, forever scanning the horizon for future threats or pain. Depressed people often focus on the past and obsess on the theme of loss. You may also focus on your own failings and flaws. Chronically angry people repeat automatic thoughts about the seemingly deliberate, hurtful behavior of the other people. Preoccupation with these themes creates a kind of tunnel vision in which you think only one kind of thought and notice only one aspect of your environment, resulting in an predominant and usually quite painful emotion. Aaron Beck has used the term selective abstraction to describe this type of tunnel vision in which you look at one of the cues in your environment to the exclusion of all others. Automatic thoughts are learned. Since childhood, people have been telling you what to think. You have been conditioned by family, friends, teachers, the media, and others to interpret events in a certain way. Over the years, you have learned and practiced habitual patterns of automatic thoughts that are difficult to detect, let alone change. That's the bad news, though. The good news, though, is what has been learned can be unlearned and changed. We must listen to these thoughts. Hearing your automatic thoughts is the first step in gaining control of unpleasant emotions. Most of your internal dialogue is harmless. The automatic thoughts that cause harm can be identified because they almost always precede a persistent, painful feeling. To identify the automatic thoughts that are causing an ongoing painful feeling, try to recall the thoughts you had just prior to the start of the emotion and those that go along with the sustained emotion. You can think of it as listening on an intercom. The intercom is always on. Even when you are conversing with others and going about your life, you're functioning in the world and are also talking to yourself at the same time. Listen in on your internal dialogue and hear what you're telling yourself. Your automatic thoughts are assigning private, idiosyncratic meaning to many external events and internal sensations and making judgments, interpretations of your daily experience. Automatic thoughts are often lightning fast and very difficult to catch. They flash on as a brief mental image or are telegraphed in a single word. Here are two methods for coping with the swiftness of these thoughts. Number one, reconstruct a problem situation. Go over it again and again in your imagination until the painful emotion begins to emerge. What are you thinking as the emotion comes up? Regard your thoughts as a slow motion film. Look at your internal dialogue frame by frame. Notice the millisecond it takes to say, "I can't stand it," or the half-second image of a terrifying event. Notice how you are internally describing and interpreting the actions of others. "He's bored," "he's putting me down," things like that. Number two, stretch out the shorthand. Expand the shorthand statement into the original statement from which it was extracted. Feeling sick might stand for "I am feeling sick," and "I know I'm going to get worse. I cannot stand it." Crazy might mean "I feel like I'm losing control," and that must mean "I am going crazy. My friends will reject me." Hearing the shorthand is not enough. Remember, hearing the shorthand is not enough. It is necessary to identify with your entire interior argument in order to understand the distorted logic from which many painful emotions bloom. And you must try to record your thoughts. To appreciate the power of your automatic thoughts and the role they play in your emotions, you must keep a thought journal. As soon as possible, after you experience an unpleasant feeling, record it, write it down. Then assess your distress level using a scale of 0 to 100, in which 0 means the feeling causing no distress and 100 is the most distressing emotion you ever felt. Carry your thought journal with you at all times for at least 1 week. Making an entry only when you feel a painful emotion. You may find that concentrating on your automatic thoughts makes the feelings worse for a while. Keep working on it. It's normal to feel worse before you start feeling to get better. Count your thoughts. Sometimes automatic thoughts come so quickly and in such abbreviated form that you cannot identify them. Even though you know you just had some, in that case, you can simply count your thoughts. Carry an index card with you, and each time you notice that you have had an automatic thought, make a mark on the card. You can also keep a count of your episodes of automatic thoughts on a golf wrist counter or a knitting stitch counter, whatever you use in your daily life. Counting your automatic thoughts will help you get some distance from them, as well as feeling of control. Rather than assuming that your automatic thoughts are an accurate assessment of events, you can note them and let them go. Once you have counted a thought, you don't need to dwell on that. The process will eventually slow your thoughts and sharpen your attention, so the content of the thoughts start to become clear. When that happens, you may want to continue counting, but also start categorizing your thoughts and counting how many you have of various types. Catastrophic thoughts, for example, thoughts about loss, for example, insecure thoughts, and so on and so forth. If you forget to count your thoughts, set your phone or watch alarm or a timer to go off every 20 minutes. When the alarm goes off, stop what you're doing, look inside you, and count any negative thoughts you might have noticed. The process of uncovering automatic thoughts may make you begin to distrust these thoughts and starts questioning and disputing them as they pop up. At this point, it is important for you to recognize that thoughts create and sustain emotions. To reduce the frequency of painful emotions, you need to listen to what you think, then ask how true your thoughts are. Remember, what you think ultimately creates what you feel.